Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back. Episode number 3. Episode number 3. So mashallah, today we have two beautiful brothers.
MashaAllah.
Khadr and
Khadr.
Khadr. Khadr and Nour. Mashallah. You guys are not brothers, right? Friends?
Cousins.
Oh, cousins?
Actually, yeah.
Oh, mashallah. I didn't
Like
know.
his mom is my dad's sister.
Oh, mashallah, mashallah.
And
So
his
knowledge
dad
runs in
is
the family.
My mom's
mashallah.
brother.
Yeah, it works that way.
Just in
mashallah.
case,
Yeah.
someone doesn't know how to.
Oh, mashallah. So I just lost it. Sorry.
Yeah, we're cousins basically, like
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, it's
Knowledge
good
runs
stuff.
in the family. Mashallah.
Tabarakallah.
Yeah, you know.
So what do you guys do? Like, you guys go to school?
Yeah, I don't. Is there an order to this? Like, do I
I'm just
start?
asking. I'm just-
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
just
like.
asking.
Is there an order to who?
Yeah.
Like,
This is the
okay.
first time we're
I
interviewing.
haven't been in school since 2013, probably. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a while. It's definitely been a while. What
Yeah.
about you?
I'm finishing up my master's in the fall, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. What are
Taking
you
night
studying?
courses. I'm studying inclusive education at McGill, which is basically how to make a classroom, how to teach a classroom with different learning difficulties
Nice.
and different demographics and how to make it a comfortable environment and a learning inducive environment for everybody instead of having to so basically this is not really a part of our topic today, but basically the way education's always been is you sort of cater to the median, right? Like to the average student, but then there's a bunch of students who are weaker, who don't really get anything,
Yeah, exactly.
and students who are stronger, who are just bored.
Yeah.
So the idea is now you sort of develop a classroom where everybody is challenged at their own level and they can all sort of meet the same marks at the end,
Mhm.
but in their own way, based on their own creativity and their own, specialties and stuff. So
That's good. Alhamdulillah.
yeah, bro.
So it's been how long now? How long you got for your masters, right?
Masters. Yeah. It's my it's a 2-year program, but I've taken
Yeah.
it slow, so it's been like 3 years I'm in it.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So
Like-
topic of the day, we had how to be productive in the summer, and a lot of people, tend to get closer to Allah in the summer, maybe because Ramadan was for the last few years was in the summer, so people tend to get closer to Allah, but now it's getting closer to winter, and so how do you get closer to Allah? Well, what's your tips? What are your tips? I'll go with Noor first.
In the summer in particular, or just in general?
No, just in general. Just in general.
Yeah, I guess in general, of course, you don't learn how to love something or appreciate something if you don't know about that
Hmm.
being or subject, right? So like if you're really into cameras, let's say you're gonna watch a bunch of camera videos and learn a little bit more about the technology itself. You're gonna really love a game or something like that. You're gonna probably like study like streamers or whatever it is playing that game and trying to literally pick at everything. So I feel like one of the first things that you really need in order to really connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a little source of knowledge that is recurring, that will keep you engaged and keep you learning about who Allah is. And ultimately, the more you learn about him, I feel like automatically your love for him just grows. And that's just the beautiful thing about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a creator, of course. That's the first thing that I would say. But you, Khadr.
100%. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Of course, like the more you get to know it, the more you love it. I also think that your environment, your surroundings are super important. I think Hadis in episode 2 speaks about that a little bit,
Exactly.
about growing up Muslim, that Muslim environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think like who you surround yourself with is like a huge factor in that. Like back when I was working at Le Savoir, it's like a Muslim school, right? So
Mhm.
like at work, I'm surrounded by Muslims,
Mhm.
and we were doing the halaqa there, Muslim. My wife, Muslim. Like try to be practicing together. So like everywhere I'm at, it's like I'm reminded of Islam. So it just brings you closer to Allah. Now I work in a Christian school,
Mhm.
so I still keep my Islam, but I definitely feel like it's not the same.
Yeah, for sure.
Like being constantly in that Muslim bubble helps, I think.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's not possible for everyone to do that. But I think the more you can spend time with like people who remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like that surrounding that,
Mhm.
even psychologically, like addictions work that way too. Like if you're addicted to smoking, for example, and you always smoke in the same room, if you go into that room, if you're trying to quit smoking, it's going to make you want to smoke. Like just that vibe, that environment is
Yeah.
going to make you want to go back to that. So I think if you surround yourself with people who remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you start to make different locations remind you of Allah and you worship him in different places in different ways, then everything sort of reminds you of that. There's always that connection. You always are reminded, you're always brought back to that addiction to, becoming more pious.
Yeah. So basically, you can say like reminder to prayer, right? So when you're with your Muslim friends, it's easier to hey guys, let's go pray Dhuhr, or hey guys, let's go, pray Maghrib. And again, you're with your non-Muslim friends. It's a bit harder, right? Again, you have it in the back of your head. You're like, I'm gonna do it later because I don't want to ruin the vibe.
Yeah.
It's always like that. I grew up as well, like with Quebecois only, and then it was a bit harder, with them to be like, oh guys, I'll be right back, right? So I understand. And again, when you were at school, especially at Jean Leminette, you're teaching there, right?
Yeah.
Over there, we heard stories, the what's it called, the salah room, the prayer room, and all that. Like you see these guys, trying and all that. You kind of, help out, was it easy to like kind of influence them as a teacher? Again, they look up to you, obviously. Do you think
You're talking about the Muslim kids or non-Muslim kids?
The Muslim kids, yeah.
Yo,
Kinda.
honestly, bro, they inspire me, bro. Like,
Yeah?
I'm gonna straight up like, what's that called when you shout out somebody when you name drop? I'm gonna name drop right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Samir Beg should be one of the next interviewees here on the show.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah, man. Like when I started working at Jean Leminette, I would just go into a random class and just pray, just like me, And then Samir's like, yo, bro, can you ask the principal to get us a prayer room? And it was my first year there. It's a good school. It's a good job. I was like, man, should I rock the boat?
Yeah.
But I was like, yo, imagine if this like 15, 16-year-old kid is telling me he wants a prayer room and I'm going to be like, nah, bro, like, I like, what is that? It really shows me up,
Yeah.
So subhanAllah, I was really stressed, made dua, went to the principal, and it was like the easiest conversation I ever had. It was like straight up. I was like, hey, I work with the mosque and I'm trying to like beat around the bush. I'm like, I'm trying, it's a community thing. Communal Muslims, Muslims, they do the Muslim prayer thing, right?
Yeah.
And, Muslim kids come here. And so I'm really like, and then he's like, yeah, what do you want?
Yeah.
Get to it. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, can we have like a room? Like I would supervise it like free. I wouldn't charge you guys, because basically if you're a teacher with students in a room, they got to pay you. So I'm like, I wouldn't take any money. It's like a volunteer thing. And he's like, you want to like pray in a room? I'm like, yeah, please. He's like, yeah, sure. Like, of course. Why would I say no to that? Like we've done it before, He's super chill about it. I think as Muslims, we feel very awkward about like things we shouldn't feel awkward about. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, oh, I can't pray in public. Like, what's going to happen? Like, nothing's going to happen, bro. Like, someone's going to walk by, walking their dog, look at you and be like, okay, cool. Like, keep walking, get so nervous, like, for nothing, subhanAllah.
So, yeah. 100%. I would really add to that. Like, when you're talking about environment and the importance of environment, a lot of people will usually really opt in the sense that this has to do with your friends, your circle, who you hang out with. But I think Khadr really brought a really good point that it's also location, environment as well. And they both equally play a very important role in establishing that proper environment for proper change and just, someone becoming a better version of themselves, I guess is the best way to put it.
What's some good advice you think you can give somebody to like establish an optimal kind of place or like using location as a way to sort of remind them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get closer to Allah?
100%. I mean, look, like for example, one of the things that my wife and I we agreed upon, like we're going to be moving soon. We're getting a new place, inshallah. In that place, what we're planning on doing is having like a part of a room dedicated to prayer, dedicated to, reading Quran and so on and so forth.
It's beautiful.
And the reason for that is literally because it trains you that when you're in that section, that's all you kind of think about. That's when you're kind of zoned into that particular action.
100%.
For example, like, how a lot of us had to work from home during, COVID for people who are at work and so on. And it's very difficult to kind of be in a limited space.
Yeah, and disassociate, like
100%. Like especially if your office is in your bedroom, it's like literally where you sleep and then you're working there, right? So like your mind is kind of like
tired, and then when you're in sleep, you're not tired. Yeah.
You're kind of like, it messes both environments in that way. So kind of compartmentalizing. So if you have like a space in your house, in your room, you dedicate that specific space, let's say to, reading Quran or like, listening to speeches or lectures or, for example, just prayer itself. It's just like the masjid, that's kind of literally some of the benefits in praying in the masjid is you're tuned in because that's the function of it. And it eliminates the distractions in that way.
I think summer's a good time to do that too.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So before even starting to talk about, getting into the mosque and praying, so we can talk about, what's the importance of Islam? Of Salah. Islam, obviously, it's important. What's the importance of Salah? Right. So a lot of people have, because, you're connecting to Allah, it's like a one-on-one with him. So, but like not a deep, dissertation, but like more of a, résumé. So how can you explain the importance of salah?
Do you want to go for it?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Honestly, I think the two things that come to mind about salah itself that I think a lot of us might not know about, or maybe we do know about, but we tend to forget, is number one, when you look at the word salah, right? It comes from a root called sila, which is literally like a signal, like a connection between you and Allah. So if you're not necessarily catering to your salah, if you're not working on that signal, well, first of all, if you don't establish salah, then that signal is not there at all. So therefore, what you're really saying is that the signal is like inexistent. You're not really connecting with Allah. In a way, you're kind of missing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your life. And of course, Allah is there for you. You know, just the fact that you're Muslim, even if you're sinning, Allah will still be there for you. But you're not going to optimize that relationship with Him. You're not going to get what you can mostly get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that sense. So it's really important for you to always remember that that's the connection, number one. And I think the second thing, of course, is, just remembering that the scholars of the past, I mean, they would say very harsh things about people, you know, who would leave prayer altogether, right? I mean, some of the opinions, I mean, I don't want to like get into the fiqh or anything like that, because that's not my place or anything like that. But just to kind of give you an example of the severity of it, like some of the scholars in the past held opinions that a person who doesn't pray is not a Muslim, right? Like, so I'm not saying that anyone who doesn't pray today is, you know, out of Islam, or like, you know, that's beyond me. Allah's the judge, right? But it just shows you the importance of it. Like, it's literally our slogan in a way, or our part of our identity, I guess, as Muslims. That's literally what makes us Muslim. You know what I mean? It's that connection with Allah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think there's also the aspect of like our own behavior, and that goes back to understanding salah. So like we said at the beginning, like if you really want to appreciate something, you got to get to know it, right? Like he gave some great examples about like anything you want to appreciate. The more you study it, the more you get to know it, the more you're like, wow, it's actually beautiful, you know? And the same thing goes with understanding your prayer, understanding the words you say in prayer. And like growing up, when I first started going to halaqat, I was like maybe 13, 14. And I remember I would ask some guys like, yo, how do I stop, you know, this particular sin? And they would, older guys, you know, and they were like, oh, bro, just pray. I'm like, oh, like, you know, like I'll pray my dhuhr and I'll sin right after, exactly, you know? Yeah. And then the more you think about it, the more it's like, well, in my prayer, what am I saying? I'm saying, okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. You know, all praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So am I really saying all praise due to Him and I'm sincere? And then I do a sin, which shows that I don't hold Him in such high esteem because I'm more comfortable pleasing my body or myself than pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like, all right, alhamdulillah, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Am I conscious of the fact that He's merciful and His mercy is all encompassing, which should entice me to not want to disobey such a merciful Lord? Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawm ad-Din. Do I realize that He's sort of the master of this day of judgment that is going to judge me? Am I still comfortable doing this sin at the same time? Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. I'm asking Him to guide me to a straight path, and then I'm going back and I'm sinning. How does that, how am I really going to say, guide me to the straight path, Ya Allah, I really want to be guided, and then here's me sinning? It's like, didn't you just ask for guidance? Like, sure, why aren't you working towards that, right? Yeah. So I get it more now. And you can go through the whole Fatiha and deconstruct it in that way and just be like, I mean, like the fact that you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hold you among those whom He loves and not those who are astray, those who earn His wrath. Like, how are you going to act in a way that you don't work for Allah's love and you're comfortable getting Allah's anger and going astray? Like, really, if you appreciate what you're saying in prayer, I think that's a big importance of prayer. Exactly. That's a big way to help you sort of live your life in a better way, because you're like, okay, I'm saying Fatiha like 17 times in my prayer. That should help me be a better person. That should help me mean what I say. Exactly. You know, that's So for you kind of trying to explain that to understand the surahs before you recite them, right? So I mean, recite them anyway. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But work on understanding, because the more you understand them, and that's why the halaqa topic we chose was tafsir juz amma, because we're always reciting juz amma, right? We're reciting surah Nas, surah Ikhlas in our prayer, Falaq, right? And the more you understand these surah, the more you can appreciate how they affect your life. And if you don't know what you're saying, then how's it going to affect your life? You know? Yeah. That's for sure.
Solid. No, that's solid advice, honestly. It really comes back down to knowledge, as you know, it's 100%, especially the language. It's tough, you know, especially for even Arab speakers these days. Like, you know, growing up, I didn't understand a lot of the Quran itself. Because even, you know, the type of Arabic that you speak, it's very different from the type that you will learn in the Quran itself, right?
Yeah,
So you have like Amiya and, you know, more classical type of Arabic as well. That's very, very different.
Mhm.
And the pronunciation is different. The words is different. With some words you don't really use.
Mhm.
So even for Arabs themselves, it's very difficult. So for both Arabs and non-Arabs alike, it's like take a second, learn that language a little bit, learn like make your intentions really about the Quran, you know, not business or, you know, conversational Arabic just for the sake of it. And you'll see yourself just go a long way also within your khushu', like your concentration in prayer. You know, you're gonna get a lot more out of it as well, and you'll appreciate it a lot more. Yeah.
Like personally, I went to Fajr 2 days ago. Mashallah, mashallah.
Mashallah, mashallah, mashallah.
Mashallah, mashallah. And you know, I was there. We prayed Fatiha, and the Fajr was 3:30 to 4:10. Right,
Oh, that's a long Fajr.
long Fajr.
Imam
Right.
Fadel?
No, Tariq.
Oh, Tariq. Boss Tariq, mashallah.
Yeah.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Taraweeh.
It's intense,
But the
bro.
thing was-
Even Tarawih 40 minutes
Yeah.
long for
Yeah.
one prayer?
But the thing was, it was
Mashallah.
beautiful because we did Fatiha, and he started the surah. I'm not too sure because he was like out of my league surah.
Mashallah,
Mashallah.
mashallah.
And then he started reciting, and then he starts crying in his recitation. And you know, it's usually when the imam cries, we got, you know, others.
People start feeling it.
People start
100%.
feeling it, and
Yeah.
2-3 guys started crying and all.
Even
and
if you're not
two-
focused, bro, you're thinking
Yeah.
about like sports, whatever. It's like, oh, he's
Yeah.
crying. Oh, let me pay attention, you know?
And I'm like, I'm tearing up. I'm like, everyone's
Mashallah,
crying, and then
mashallah,
like,
mashallah.
I'm like, I feel this energy in the room, right?
Mm,
So it just shows, like, you know,
It's
if you
beautiful.
actually know what Allah, you know, is saying,
it's beautiful.
and it's beautiful,
powerful, yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
again, I heard Khalid Hicks told me this. I don't know if you guys know Khalid Hicks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
episode 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, we follow this, man.
That's
Yeah. Sorry. He told me that back in the day, the Quran was so powerful that even though they were non-Muslim, they knew it was powerful because no way that's like
It's true.
a human being can, like, you know, write this. So when they used to recite the Quran, people used to just convert on the spot, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it was like he used to tell me that the surahs were a bit shorter before, you know, وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا وَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدَحًا, because, you know, they would cover the ears,
Mhm.
right? So when they hear it, they just fall in love with it, and they know that they'll fall in love with it. That's why you used to cover their ears.
Because
the
they
thing is-
understood it.
Yeah, they understood it,
Yeah,
right? So
100%.
that's why they shortened Allah shortened the ayat, and every time they uncovered, and then they hear it, right?
Mhm.
And right there they would convert. So
It's beautiful.
it is beautiful to hear. When I
Yeah.
heard that, I got into adiyat's, details in
tafsir
a
bit, yeah.
tafsir, and it was just beautiful. You know how like the horse is getting closer, and then like mankind is ungrateful, and then my heart just dropped. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, mashallah, right?
Yeah.
So
You appreciate it so much
yeah,
more.
It's
Oh, yeah,
it's
100%.
nice. Alhamdulillah.
And there's different levels to it too, right? Like for some, it starts with like, you know, just translation alone is more than enough to start with, you know?
You know,
And
like
then-
the halaqa we're doing, it's basically translation.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're just reading the English
100%.
translation and like
Yeah.
talking a little bit about an ayah. Like some guy came up to me the other day and he's like, yo, which tafsir are you using? Like Ibn Kathir, Ibn Abbas. Like, I'm like, yo, like, inshallah, we just read the English translation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then-
let's start with that.
Yeah, start with that.
Yeah.
And the people are going to get affected, inshallah. And then if, you know, they want to go to tafsir, that's why I don't feel comfortable saying it's tafsir juz amma. It's not. Bro.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
it's like, let's talk about juz amma. Like,
Mhm.
that's basically what we're
Yeah.
trying to do to get that connection, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we spoke about the importance of salah. So why is it so important to pray at the mosque? A lot of people say I can pray at home. It's easier, you know. You get up, you just pray Fajr, you go back to sleep, right?
Mhm.
Why is it so important to pray at the mosque? I'll go with Nour first.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm guilty of this myself.
Yeah.
Like it's not easy to establish that habit of literally praying every prayer at the mosque.
Yeah.
But you know, some of the brothers used to always say the same thing, and it's very good advice. If you can't just do that alone, just do Isha and like, you know, maybe Fajr or just Isha itself. You know, like start small, start with something that's easy that you can actually attend and that you can do that consistently. Because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes the consistent deeds, even though, you know, they are small.
Exactly.
So the reason why I think number one, of course, is coming back to that point that this is the environment for prayer itself. When you're hyper focused in that environment, you just get a lot more out of that. So it's like, for example, you wanted to play soccer. Yeah, you can play in a basketball court, but you're kind of missing the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're not going to really be in that zone the same way
Yeah,
that you do it
exactly.
in like a soccer field kind of thing. And same goes with prayer. Like you can do it at home. Sure, it's accepted in that way. But if you do it at the mosque, first of all, the congregation in terms of the reward that you get is much, much bigger. There's many ahadith. I'm sure Khadr can touch upon that himself. But there's a lot of evidences not only to the power of it and the greatness and the reward that you get there, but also just the hyper focusedness, like the type of reward that you get also mentally, spiritually from engaging in that kind of practice is way greater than what you get at home. 100%. There's no like denying that.
I think one of the benefits you get from praying at the mosque, you know, some people say that you got to walk before you can run. So they be like, yo, don't pray at the mosque right away. Like just pray at home first and then go to the mosque. I actually disagree with that personally. I think like when in a time in my life when I wasn't so, you know, on point with my prayers, jumping from that to praying at the mosque really helped me.
Facts.
Like even pray at home, you know, like I think especially with timings, like Noor mentioned praying Isha at the mosque, bro, I'm gonna be real. If I don't pray Isha at the mosque, I'm praying Isha at like 11:58 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's because I've heard opinions saying that if you pray it after midnight, it's not legit. Like it doesn't
Even
count.
Qiyam, I think after Qiyam also like.
Yeah, like back in the day when I thought I had until Fajr.
Yeah.
And like I'm just chilling at home and it's like, you know, I'm like 16, 17 and it's like a summer night and I'm not doing anything the next day. I would legit pray Isha like 15 minutes before Fajr Adhan. Like you just delay it, right? Because you're like, I can't sleep until I pray Isha.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't
have
sleep.
It, but the thing is you're chilling, you're watching
That's
YouTube
it.
videos, you got
and
this,
you're like, yo, I can't, I'm tired.
Procrastinated.
I can't sleep because I got to pray Isha. And then you're really tired. I'm like, I want to sleep, but I got to pray Isha. Okay, let me watch another video, you know? And then you just like swipe.
Then you see like, it's 3:16. Like,
whoa. You know?
That's when you catch yourself.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that idea of having like a mosque room is awesome in the house because, you know, you put the timings there and it's like, I got to pray at a certain time. I think the mosque encourages that.
Yeah.
The mosque is like, yo, you want to pray Isha at the mosque? You got to be here 10:50.
Yeah.
We pray 10:50.
Yeah.
And then you come back home and then you can relax and actually enjoy your
chill.
night, you know?
Actually, that's the thing because sometimes again, Isha's back in my head, you know, it's 11, 12 sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when I pray Isha at the mosque, I get home, I'm like, okay, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly.
No
Guilt, no like in the back of my head. Like,
Exactly.
And just the reward. Noor was saying the reward of praying like Isha and Fajr at the mosque specifically. Like there's many ahadith talk about this, about how praying Isha at the mosque is equal to half the night in prayer.
Yeah.
And praying Fajr in the mosque is equal to half the night in prayer. So if you're the kind of person who's like, yo, I really want to pray Qiyam, but it's struggle, then you show up to the mosque for Isha, you go home, you sleep right when you get home, right? You don't waste your time. You wake up for Fajr, you pray at the mosque, you get that reward, that whole night of prayer. That's something you can't get if you don't pray at the mosque, right? Like there's so much reward in it. There's brotherhood. And you know what? I'm going to say something that might sound a bit controversial because we're in a mosque. But I think a lot of people who come to the mosque regularly aren't the best people to encourage people to come to the mosque. Yeah. I'm going to say that some people are discouraging, especially youth, from coming to the mosque.
That's true, 100%.
I think ICC, mashallah, tabarakallah, is not as guilty of that. Alhamdulillah. I really feel
100%.
like compared to other mosques I've been to in my life, ICC is incredibly welcoming, incredibly,
I'll share a story real quick here.
Go ahead. Without mentioning any mosque names.
Yeah,
right? We're just gonna
all copyright intended. All right reserved. All right reserved.
No, but like I was, I think maybe 14 at the time or something like that. It was a summer. I was like, you know what? I woke up for Fajr. I'm like, you know what? Let me walk to the masjid. Let me actually walk to the masjid.
At 14, that's really legit.
Literally, you know,
that's
like
a big
It's a big thing for me. I was like, man, like
that is.
Tap yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Something
Mashallah.
great.
That's awesome.
Mashallah. Without like inflating your own ego or anything like that, but you're walking to the masjid and you're thinking and you're reflecting about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on and so forth. It's a summer.
It's awesome.
So of course you're wearing like, you know, shorts. Or
I can see where the story's going.
Yeah, you know, like they still covered my knees. Like they were good. Like alhamdulillah. But as I get close to the masjid, of course, I get there. I'm like literally tapping myself on the back. Good job. You know, you did it. Great rewards. You know, you've accomplished something that like all these other kids, you know, they're sleeping. And the first thing that happens to me, and I kid you not, the first thing was this regular uncle who's been praying there for many years. Mashallah, you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, give him his due reward and of course protect him and so on and so forth without bashing anyone, right? But the first thing he literally tells me is about my shorts.
Yeah.
And how, you know, they're not necessarily really covering my knees in the entire prayer. So he's like, you're literally like, it's useless what you did.
And you can perceive that as an attack.
100%.
Yeah.
As a kid, especially, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're literally like in your teen years, you want to fight anyone who like literally disagrees with you, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Literally, without taking any physical jabs or anything.
Yeah.
But I remember just being super crushed. And you know what's the worst part of all this? I kid you not, maybe another time I did the same, but this time I was wearing pants on purpose. And now he was saying something about my pants being too long.
Are you serious?
I kid you.
Yo, that's awesome, bro.
So like the double
That's
whammy,
awesome,
it's
bro.
like,
You know,
okay,
this
so,
guy should work. This guy should do a side
like your
job as a
pants are
tailor.
below your ankles,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
And,
then I
it's a
heard,
valid opinion for a lot.
and I also
Mashallah.
heard that you can't, if you fold them on purpose for the prayer.
Yeah, I heard
it's-
that too.
Yeah, you can't. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not permissible.
So imagine like telling a
Yeah.
kid that who just like did all that effort and like,
Yeah.
pumped himself up. All these other kids are sleeping, probably missing prayer, wallahu alam, And then that kid is like doing everything they can to like get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just establish a proper habit.
Mhm.
And the first thing that happens is like, someone who's a regular mosque goer just kind of crushes that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if
So-
people listening to that story are kind of glancing over it, but that story hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like on a
Yeah.
deep level. Like I'm
Yeah.
listening to that and I'm like,
It's tough.
it's like crushing that story
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you work so hard to encourage young guys to come to the mosque and change their life, and then you got that one incident that just breaks everything you worked so hard on.
100%.
It's like,
Yeah.
man, like
Yeah, exactly.
why you gotta be like that? You know?
Yeah, and just to add on that, like,
Mhm.
of course, when you grow out of it, you start to understand that, it's not an excuse. Some people will take that and they'll ride with it. Like,
Yeah.
I had that one negative experience at the mosque.
Mhm.
Never again. I'm never praying there. It's like, I'm never even entering there.
And that's wrong too.
And that's very wrong, to be
Yeah.
honest. But there is a certain level of empathy that I have towards people like that. Having gone through an experience like that, I'm like, okay, well, I can see, I don't agree with that kind of thinking, but I can see why a person would be led to do that kind of action. It's a very rational,
Yeah.
not really rational, but it's a very like realistic emotional response to a
Mhm.
situation like that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it happens. So I totally agree with what Khadr is saying about, unfortunately, they're not necessarily always the best at bringing these, the youth or even the elders kind of thing to make that a habit.
Mhm.
100% agree. I
Mhm.
can't agree with it like more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's great to see that I think there's this general trend nowadays of mosques to move towards a more inclusive environment.
100%.
I think that's really cool, and I think
Yeah.
ICC is really at the forefront of that. Mashallah,
Yeah.
like just the fact that mashallah, they've sponsored this whole project, right?
Yeah.
The halaqa,
The basketball nets.
the basketball
Yeah.
nets,
Yeah,
like.
two of them.
It's like it's a different way of running a mosque where it's like now we want the youth here,
Mhm.
It's a completely different
It kind
completely different
of
way
shows
looking
like
at it.
as a 14, 15-year-old kid, you see all
Yeah.
this, right? Like the mosque is giving out, basketball nets and
Mhm.
all these events, the
free food,
free
whatever.
food and all that. They're like, okay, these guys are trying, so maybe
Mhm.
there's
100%.
something behind the
So
effort.
I think what's interesting about that is that you'll have two different, kind of ideologies when it comes to the masjid. And I've kind of talked to different shiykh about this, and I've heard some very interesting opinions about, whether masajid themselves should be like, centers, whether a center is a masjid, what's the difference
Mhm,
between the 2 and
mhm,
so on.
mhm.
I try not to get too much in that, but maybe it's something that, you guys can perhaps share a little bit more about what you guys think about this. But, some mashayikh are like very anti all of that.
Mhm.
They're like, no, the masjid should just be literally,
Prayer,
that's it, prayer.
Quran.
You come in, you
That's it.
pray, you do your Quran, you're out, it's done. And then you have another school of thought, which I personally tend to agree with a little bit more, given the context that we're living in,
yeah,
especially in the West.
Mhm.
And one of the things is like, no, like a masjid should push to have programs that are a bit more geared towards the youth,
yeah.
sports, leagues, and so on and so forth.
We don't live in Saudi, bro, where there's a mosque every corner. Like, of course, if
100%.
you're in Saudi and there's a mosque literally every corner of every street,
Mhm.
and you walk in and then you want to set up a basketball game, it's like, bro, can you just play outside, please? Like,
Yeah.
and I get that,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because this place is to pray. But you're living in Quebec, you're living in Montreal, where like
Mhm.
legit, maybe there's like 3 or 4 actual big mosques
Mhm.
in within like 20 kilometers of you.
Radius, yeah.
It needs to be more than just a prayer hall.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's honestly the opinion I've always seen. And that's one of the things that I really loved about some of the communities, especially ICC, honestly, because it's the only one in like Quebec, literally, that has, like an indoor gym in
Yeah.
it. You can play
That
sports
you can
here,
actually play in.
literally, and it's
Mhm.
spacious enough to enjoy it. It's not like, a
Yeah.
little, like
Yeah,
a half
yeah.
court for
It's like a room
40
basically.
people,
Like,
yeah.
okay, play soccer. Go.
yeah, literally,
Yeah.
you do really enjoy it.
Set up a basketball.
But that's one of the beautiful things. Like when we went to Dallas for the Baina program, that was one of the most beautiful, most enlightening
Yeah.
moments in my life. And it's such a positive memory that I'll never forget. It's just walking into that masjid at the one in Irving,
Texas?
yeah, and literally they have 3 full court like basketball,
Mashallah.
like 3 full
Mashallah.
basketball courts, filled with kids. Whether it's Fajr, whether it's like Dhuhr, etc., they're literally there for like almost every prayer. They're praying they're playing their games.
Mhm.
They're there for Isha as well, and that really encourages kids as well to
Mhm.
attend,
Mhm.
especially if you can kind of incorporate that sport and then like lead them into prayer.
Yeah.
it really builds a beautiful, beautiful communal like type of feel.
If I can just add to that, there's some people who might have the opinion that, you shouldn't encourage people to come to the mosque with sports and food and all these things. And, they should come to the mosque because they want to come to the mosque. They should come to the mosque because they want to go to the halaqa. And I 100% disagree with that. 100% disagree with that. Like even a portion of zakat is allowed to give to a group of non-Muslims to soften their heart towards Islam. Mm-hmm. So the idea of softening someone's heart towards Islam by any means necessary is something that's encouraged in Islam. Yeah. There's a hadith that talk about how, somebody can come and sit down in a gathering of people remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command the angels to record the names of everybody in that gathering. And the angels will come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Ya Allah, there's a man in there who just came to take some shade. He just came to sort of rest and relax. He's not really there to gain knowledge. It's not why he's there. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command the angels to record the name of this person as well, because he's in that gathering. Yeah. So, whether the guy is coming for free pizza or he's coming for basketball or he's coming for the speech, bro, he's there for the speech. He's, he's there for Maghrib, he's there for Isha. Like encouraging them to come to the mosque, I think through any means necessary, I think is a great blessing.
Another story to add to that. So about maybe 20 years ago, so there was this kid, he was at Vanier, and mashallah, my cousin, Omar Hussein, he used to,
he's your cousin?
He's my cousin. Oldest cousin.
Toronto guy, right?
Vancouver.
Yeah.
Omar Hussein used to go to Vani because his brother was there, and then he used to come to the MSAs and give out, dawah, khutbas, Friday khutbas, right? So this is one kid, non-Muslim, sitting in the back, chilling, because his Muslim friends were in Jummah, right? So he would chill in the back in the seats, just watch them, pray and all that. And then Omar Hussein spoke about, how do you respect your parents in Islam? How does Islam talk about parents? And then that kid went on, at home, a non-Muslim kid, his family was a really religious family of, that I don't want to say out his name or anything.
Mm-hmm. What religion was? Do you know what religion he was?
Yeah, Hinduism.
Okay, he's
Hinduism, right?
Okay.
And then that kid, he was starting to pray, inside the bathroom because he couldn't pray, outside. If you wanted to, he didn't know, you can't pray in the bathroom, right?
He wanted to pray Muslim
prayer. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was getting in the religion and all that. So that kid, mashallah, 20 years ago. So I wasn't even born 20 years ago. But now that kid, I look up to that kid now today, mashallah. Right? And then he told me that your cousin Umar Hussein came up, at the khutbah, gave a khutbah, and then now you're learning from me. So you see all this, it comes, it's crazy, alhamdulillah. Then it's just crazy how these small actions or small, these programs we do, with food and all that. That kid shouldn't even be there, right, at the khutbah, because he's not even Muslim.
Yeah.
The thing was, he was there because his friends, kind of influenced him, maybe come, just wait 2 minutes, we're just gonna do the khutbah and leave. He heard that, and today, mashallah.
And he still benefited.
still benefited, So again, I always say that it's just little actions. Maybe that kid who's, he's curious, why Allah this. He comes to one halaqah, and that one halaqah can change his whole life completely.
I'll say that's the same story for myself, honestly. Yeah. Like my cousin, without praising him too much, because I don't want to slap me after in the car or anything like that. But he's maybe 13 or 14 or something like that, and he was like, "Hey, yo, Nour." I remember back then, being someone who was very involved in music and just making my beats on FL Studio.
We made a band, right? We made a band. We made a rap band.
Times.
Yeah.
Who was rapping? You rapping?
Both of us.
We
were the rappers. Nadir was vocalist?
He was the singer.
He was the singer.
He was the actual singer.
So cringe.
Yeah, really.
Citizens of the World was our name.
Citizens of the World.
Kato.
100%.
Citizens of the World.
We're going places. Going a lot of places.
Wow.
Noor made the beats on Fruity Loops. Fruity Loops.
Oh my god.
It's an old program you can make beats on.
It just kind of that's literally how we spent a lot of my teenagehood. And then one day, just Khadr comes in and he's like, "Yeah, so bro, I don't know if you should be, listening to that. It's not really good for you and so on and so on." I'm like, "Where are you getting that, bro?" And he goes, "Yeah, it says in Bukhari, it's not a good thing." I'm like, who the hell's Bukhari? I swear.
Yo, I probably didn't even know who Bukhari was. I'm like, yo, Bukhari is
I was confused. I was like,
Prophet Bukhari or something. I don't know.
Who's this? And subhanAllah, now, of course, with all the most respect that I have for Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, but in the past, I was like, who the heck is this guy? He's gonna tell me that I can't do what I love doing, kind of thing. Yeah. And it just started with one little halaqah. He's like, just come for one Friday, after school, etc. We'll play some games. These guys are really cool, etc. And subhanAllah, that one little moment just kind of
the rest is history, man.
literally.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah.
And then it was like resurrection events,
Yeah,
and
literally,
MSAs,
right?
and
Chronicle of
Just
Faith.
Chronicle
yeah, it
of
goes on and
Faith.
on.
You're legit touring,
crazy,
like
bro.
doing
Yeah.
like Islamic skits and
Yeah,
beauties of Islams and just like everything, man. SubhanAllah, from that one halaqah. Yo, halaqas are a big thing, man. The mosque and the mosque as the place to do that is a big thing too.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The right group of guys,
Mhm.
the right group of activities that is engaging enough to keep
Mhm.
these, younger dudes like coming.
Mhm.
I think that's literally, and honestly, as much as we do a lot for the youth, it's also important for elders to have their things as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, and I feel like sometimes we push a little bit too hard on the youth, and sometimes we push too hard on the elders. And you need to really have a good balance on both,
Mm.
because you don't want to ostracize anyone, and everyone equally needs that, especially if you're young,
Mm.
because that's the future, literally.
Mhm.
If you can solve that, you solve most of the issues of a community.
Yeah.
It really starts from there, and I like that's my firm belief, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But elders also need that, and the reason for that is just because it really is a community at the end of the day.
Mm.
So you need people from all walks of life to kind of be there, so that you can really experience what it really means to be in a community.
Exactly. I don't know if you remember, like we had when we had the halakha here in this room. We had this really not really old, but I think he was maybe in his like 35, 40s,
Okay.
and I forgot his name, and he converted like a week ago. And then Imam Fudel, he said that maybe this could be like a little introduction, to the halakha. Again, we were aiming, kids between 13 and 18.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the thing is, the same message to everyone after you hit, a certain age in Islam.
Yeah.
To maybe whether you're 12, whether you're 18, whether you're 20, whether you're 80,
Mhm.
it's always the same message, right?
true.
So what he benefited so much from that. Mashallah, like I gave him little again tips and tricks, how to get the prayers done and the wudu and all that. He didn't know anything. Like he's a week in, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of a special moment, with him. Like I was trying to be selfish. I'm like, oh, you can do this, that. Anything he did good, I'm not like, alhamdulillah.
It's on my bank. It's on my record,
So I get it till this day. We talk on WhatsApp.
Awesome.
Like
Mashallah.
sometimes he
That's
asks
really
questions and all that.
You don't know his name, bro?
I forgot his name
Yeah, it's
completely.
fine.
I didn't see his number, like his name.
You just have his number?
Oh,
It's like 514-581.
yeah.
Message me.
Ask them.
Don't worry
I don't
about it.
save numbers, man.
It's fine,
I've
bro.
heard-
It's fine.
I don't
It's
save
fine.
numbers
I've
at
heard
all.
yours.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
So you remember when we used to do FYI, like those little dawah booths?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
For your inspiration. We had a lot of groups, bro.
Literally, like we had this thing that we used to do at university. This is like literally post college for myself. So I guess you were still in CJEP. And for a lot of people as well, they're kind of still in college and whatnot. And we used to do these little dawah booths. And I just remember one brother literally like going there, and we had this like how to give shahada in like 10 minutes or something like that from Sheikh Kamal al-Maki. Really, really awesome like course.
It was like a crash course on how to get a shahada.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that I remember this brother in particular giving that dawah, getting the shahada, and as he gets the shahada, he goes, "Bro, what's your name?"
He's like, I want to congratulate you, bro. What's your name? It's like, you should have asked that first, bro.
It's like a sale,
Oh,
I guess.
man.
You know,
It's like
yeah.
a sale.
It's like we used to
Good
joke about
times.
that because we used to
Yeah.
work at Equinox, which is like the worst place to work. You shouldn't work there.
Yeah.
But it's a call center, and they rate you on your SPH, which is your sales per hour. And we used to work with shahadas per hour, like what's your SPH, bro? I was awful at that. I would talk to somebody for like an hour, and then in the end, I'd be like, cool. Like I didn't know how to close the deal, and they would just walk away, and be like, oh, mashallah, really great religion. Like, thanks, bro. And they'd walk, be like, oh, what?
Yeah, but I don't blame you for like forgetting a name. Like I feel like there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who will do a lot worse than that.
Back to your point, actually, about elders having their own thing and youth having their own thing.
Yeah.
I think for example, like the reason why we have the halaqah in the basement is not because we're trying to hide it from nobody.
Yeah.
It's just you can tell, like this past Friday, okay, we're having the halaqah, and then towards the end of the halaqah, maybe 10 minutes left before Maghrib Adhan, there's a guy who comes downstairs to the basement to just like look and see what's happening, and he wasn't that old, maybe like 40, 40, 45, whatever, and he came down, and instantly the vibe in the room changed.
Yeah,
because you got a bunch of like 15 to 20 year olds, and we're talking, and especially this past halaqah, we were talking about like temptation of like like your desires and like things that are kind of like taboo. Generally, people don't like talk about.
Things you don't talk about with your parents.
Things that you feel like you feel.
Exactly.
Some people feel awkward talking about with their parents.
Yeah.
And then we back and forth, and then as soon as this brother came downstairs, like the room changed. you know, and people were a bit less comfortable. People were a bit less, and it's unfortunate because, you know, we should be able to have this conversation with everybody around. But the reality is that kids are going to feel a lot more comfortable if it's just us, if it's just the brothers, you know, just the dudes talking about it. But that doesn't mean we should neglect, you know, people who are over 30 need to have, yo, bro, you're 30, aren't you?
Almost.
Yo, I'm getting there too, bro. Like we need halaqas to teach us as well, bro.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
we're getting there to that age. So we can't neglect people who are older as well.
Oh,
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
So we got fard salahs, right? So the importance of sunnah salahs, right? So we got, I think I've heard like, not all your prayers are accepted, you know, because, you know, sometimes you're not. That's why you say astaghfirullah at the end of the prayers. And then sometimes the sunnah prayers kind of, you know, cover them.
Fill in the gaps.
Yeah, fill in the gaps, right? So why is that so important?
I mean, just exactly as you mentioned, like it's really, when you have deficiencies in your prayer, like that's what the sunnah prayers are supposed to come and, you know, fill out, right? So if you're not praying them, number one, then if you do have any deficiencies, which is very likely, let's be honest, like none of us are perfect when we come to our prayer. We're not like always 100% in the zone necessarily, right? So if that happens, at least you have something that's kind of covering the tracks.
And that might actually help to like, you know, as like a warm up, you know, like before your dhuhr, you know,
yes,
like.
Yeah, especially for prayers that come 100%. Yeah, it prepares you 100%. So like a person who's going for a sprint, if he jogs a little bit, it's the same kind of concept, right? Yeah. Like you're getting prepared for that. Another thing I could say for sure is also, it's just a protection at the end of the day. And it's also a habit builder. So the more you do, the easier it becomes because you're just doing more volume and more repetition naturally, right? Yeah. Anyone who trains for any sport, like the more repetition you do, it's the same thing. At the end of the day, the more you get out of it, the easier your body will be when it comes to the actual task. Same goes with the sunnah. The more you pray, the more prayer itself naturally just becomes easier to do.
Like you're not gonna miss if you're the kind of person who prays all your sunnahs, you're not gonna miss asr, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Fard will be so easy that you'll be mad if you miss sunnah, right? Some people do. My auntie always tells me that if you get so used to praying sunnah, like it's like missing fard is almost impossible, like, you know, because you're doing the extra, right? Doing the bare minimum would be so easy for you, right? So
and look, we all fall in that trap sometimes. We want to cut corners. You know, we tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm too busy," or have things that are more important to do. The reality is, it really doesn't take that much time.
It really doesn't.
You know, a lot of them are like 2 rakat for I think literally almost all of them, aside from the dhuhr, right? If I'm not mistaken. So,
and it's such I catch myself lying to myself sometimes. Like this happened the other day where I think I yesterday even, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. I prayed Maghrib and then I'm like, yo, I should pray my 2 sunnah rakat after Maghrib. And then it's like, well, I don't really have time. Like it was kind of tight for time. And then I think someone texted me and I was like, oh, this person. and I texted back and we just started like texting back and forth.
I hope that's not me, man.
And like, and like 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes later, I look at the time. I'm like, I'm such a baqwaser to myself, you know, like how am I going to lie to myself and tell myself I don't have time when I just spent 8, 9 minutes talking to some person who I could have messaged afterwards, you know, like I do have the 2, 3 minutes it takes to pray my sunnahs. It's a question of like, what do you prioritize?
Yeah, for 100%. Sure. Like I see it in you because every time we talk, like after like the adhan goes off, I try to, you know, between, you know, after halaqas, you know, the maghrib starts, like we try to have a conversation between the end of the adhan and iqama. You tell me, yo, hold on, wait, let me pray my rakat first. Yeah. And that puts it in my head too. I'm like, okay. I gotta force myself. Yeah, exactly.
You gotta, and just the reward that comes with it too. Like I'm just gonna mention 2 quick hadith and I'm gonna leave it there. The reward of praying the 2 rakat before fajr. Yeah. It's better than the whole world and everything in it. So that's actually an exercise I would do with my students. I'd be like, yo guys, what do you want out of this world? Like talk about dunya stuff. What do you want? It's like Ferrari, Lambo, mansion, you know, private jet. I was like, cool. Keep going. And they're like, Golden Globe, boy. Like, they're going like crazy, like, you know, everything they want. I'm like, cool. Those 2 rakat before Fajr is worth more than all that. Yeah. And it puts it in perspective. Like, why can't I wake up just 2 minutes earlier, you know, and do that? And then just the other hadith about the 12 rakat, you know, like the 2 before Fajr, 4 before Dhuhr, 2 after Dhuhr, 2 after Maghrib, 2 after Isha. Anybody who prays this, Allah promises them a mansion in Jannah. Like, you're going to work how long to buy a house here? Yeah. Like, especially in today's market, Like you're probably never gonna buy a house in your life, bro. Like if you're really trying, like you're trying to like do it properly and you're, I'm talking about myself first, bro. I'm still renting.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle,
Yeah,
bro.
for sure.
Unless you prioritize that and you work towards it for like a few years.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, like mashallah, tabarakallah, like Noor just got his mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah.
And
mashallah.
it's like I know how hard he's been. Like he knows better than anybody how hard he's been working. You know, to get that place. And then it's like, well, you know, if you just spent like 15 minutes in a day, you can have a mansion in Jannah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you don't even want that. Like you don't even want to spend that 15 minutes. You're gonna spend years, but not 15 minutes. Like it really puts it in perspective. Like, what am I really prioritizing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, also just piggybacking off of what you said, Yusuf, as well. Like, you know, in that interaction with Khudr, let's say, post halaqa, when he's praying his rak'ah, like his two rak'at, let's say, before, like after the adhan or after whatnot. In your case, it not only pushed you to probably do it yourself, right? So in a way that if one person does it, I think what ends up naturally happening is that I can't have a conversation with his brother. So how am I supposed to occupy my next 5 minutes?
Exactly.
Whatever. Let's just,
exactly.
put in the prayer there. And subhanAllah, you get that reward out of it.
And again, mashallah, if he's giving the speeches, imagine he's giving the halaqah.
Yeah.
And the kids, are sitting down and waiting, for the maghrib prayer. They look up, you see this guy, praying to his, sunnah prayers. You know what? Let me try. Let me
that's actually why I actually make it a point when I'm in public settings and we pray Maghrib or Isha, and they push me to do it at home too.
Yeah.
But I don't even take the time to make my dua after prayer. I straight up get up right away and pray my sunnahs because I don't want someone who is looking at me to be like, like stand up and then walk away and then see me pray my sunnahs and then they get reminded, like I already walked away. So I like to do it right away. And actually, we were watching this UFC fight at my place the other day. With these two guys, and we prayed Maghrib, and then right after Maghrib, I got up and prayed my two sunnahs like right away, and then I realized they both started praying as well, and then I turned around at the end, and then one guy was like, "Yo, bro, I saw you get up," and then I started praying, and then the other guy was like, "Yo, I saw you both praying, and I felt like a mad kafir," so I started praying my sunnahs too, bro. I was like, "Yes, I got it."
Solid reminder, honestly, it really is.
Action speaks louder than words. Exactly. It's like if you want to change someone, if you're trying to. A sibling or a friend, you every time you remind him, fine, let's go pray Fajr or it's a bit harder, but if he sees you doing all that, he might consider it, right? So
100%. And that also connects with the whole masjid thing, right? Like I think that most often you'll find people who will pray their sunnahs in the masjid. So what's interesting about that is that you're more likely to pray your sunnahs as well the more you pray in the masjid naturally, because when you're at home, nobody's really there to hold you account. Like you're going to be doing that to yourself. And if you want to be lazy one day, you will kind of, take a shortcut and just cut it out kind of thing.
It's like the same thing. Like I try to, mashallah, me and my friend Abias, shout out Abias. We started to go to Fajr almost every day. Right? We missed one day. It was my birthday, like the day after my birthday, because we just ate.
You watched
the
Habs game and
no, not even. We just ate.
His birthday became born, right?
We just ate too much and we got up after the here. And then I'm like, oh man, I felt so bad. And
it's a habit though, it's a habit.
Yeah, and the thing is, I started off like first 2 days alone. And I'm like, I know I'm not gonna like come the third or the fourth day. I need someone with me. And I'm like, Abias, you down? Like, if I don't go, you call me out. If you don't go, I'll call you out.
That's a great, inshallah.
And since then, awesome. we both call each other like 9 a.m. Like after we woke up and all, we're like, yo, bro.
Kind of messed up.
He's like, geez, yo, inshallah tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
So if you have that, relationship with your friends and or even your brothers and sisters, kind of helps. Right,
that's exactly how
Jamaat and all that.
That's exactly how when I first ever started going to pray to the mosque, it was exactly like that.
Yeah,
it was like a brother. It was Adil at the time, who would call me up in the morning and be like, "Yo, I'm coming to pick you up. I'm gonna be at your place to pick you up." Yeah. Brother Frank as well. Like so many guys, they would show up to my place, pick me up, and then it's like you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah,
and it built that habit, mashallah.
You know what's crazy also, like when I was like getting into the deen. There's always, your videos with his long hair, beard, mashallah, throwback. He's always, pushing, with his videos. And then once he dropped a 30-day challenge, Fajr challenge, right?
I failed in the middle of that.
I think you failed like one day.
I had to restart.
Yeah, and you restarted, right?
It took me like 46 days.
Some people are like, we'll start, the same count and all that. So he restarted, right? So I was watching again. I wasn't sleeping like, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I used to watch him, to go. going to Fajr and all that. I was like, you know what, let me try to go Maghrib, like at least Maghrib, right? I wasn't praying at all. So I'm like, let me go pray Maghrib. I saw him sitting there. I'm like, let me go talk to him. And like, is there any halaqas? Help me out, this, that. And my dad saw me here. Like, he's like, you're at the mosque? what do you like? You know what's nice with my dad? Because, if you force too much, right? I feel like,
kids will push back.
They'll push back.
Yeah.
And my dad, he always puts that doubt in my head. Yusuf, it's time for Maghrib and I'm playing video games. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna do it. Obviously, I don't do it, right? And then later on, I also thanked him. I'm like, like thanks for not being too aggressive. And he once, he put me under the bus. He's like, went to Imam Fudel. How close he is with Imam Fudel. He straight up went to him. He's like, Yusuf, he doesn't pray. And I'm like, oh man, oh man. I was like, I'm sitting there. When you're guilty, you have the whole blood pressure on your face.
Yeah. You wanted to run away, bro.
Yeah, and then Imam's like, "Are you serious, bro? Are you serious?" Like, and I'm like, it's tough. He's like, brother. Yeah, and he wasn't aggressive either. He's like, "Look, brother." He told me like, you can do this, that, and then I started praying, Maghrib every day for 30
Just Maghrib,
days.
right?
Just
Yo,
Maghrib.
there's an uncle told me the same thing. He's like, I started off with an easy salah, 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then all of them.
And again, with you get these temptations and all that, then I kind of, drifted apart a bit. And then I was listening to the speech. I don't know if you guys know Saat Taslim.
Yes.
Al-Maghrib. He gave a speech saying that, at night, if you pray at night, that's when you're closest to Allah, right? And then if you pray, like, already you're up. Like, people who are, like, not
you
praying.
mean Qiyam?
Yeah, no, I like at the end of right before Fajr.
The last third of the night.
Yeah, last third of the night, because Allah is like, the lowest part, lowest heaven and all that.
Yeah.
And then he says that, if you pray at the time and you ask, help me Allah and all that, because it's hard to pray, right? Even though you want to, but you're so lazy that you just don't, right? So I started doing that, and then it just, everything fell apart, like, fell
into place.
fell into place, right?
Yeah.
So after that, I never looked back. It's like, for me, Ramadan was the best time also Ramadan kicked in as well at the same time. And it's
like that extra little boost that keeps you going. Yeah, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? I think, if I remember well, if I remember listening to something that had to do within psychology, or maybe it was in a book I was reading many years ago, that said, like, to establish a habit, it can take, 6 months to a year properly. Yeah. And usually that just means that you've established it, but you can always kind of walk back at any point in time. So it's very, very crucial to kind of build that defense system so that it doesn't go. And I think it even goes all the way to like 5 to 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. And of course, psychologists could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but at any point after that, that's when it really becomes a part of your identity. And there's something called cognitive dissonance that kicks in. And it's a little mechanism that we all have as human beings, that when your actions kind of contradict your values, so what you believe in, what you stand for, you just naturally get a sense of guilt. And that kind of guilt can actually push you back into doing that action kind of thing. So it can take like 5 to 7 years literally to build that so that it becomes a part of your identity, so that naturally you're always going to have that kind of defense mechanism. And at that point, inshallah, for life, as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps guiding us kind of thing. But it's a long process. It's not easy. And you're going to fall apart many times in that process. And it's fine. Just pick yourself right back up and inshallah keep going. You know what I mean? Keep trying.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. I spoke, I think yesterday I spoke to my aunt. MashaAllah, she's really old. I'm not going to call out her age. She'll kill me for this. She said to me, like, we're not perfect, right? We strive for perfection, but we're not perfect. Allah is perfect. Allah says that, strive for perfection. So you don't know what perfect is, right? So you're going for it, and every time you're going to fail. You're going to fail every time, right? So you're like, Allah loves the fact that, you get up, you go to strive for it again, right? So she told me that. She tells me that, don't think that, once you're working on this project, working with Halaqas and all that, one day, 30 kids will show up. The next week, like 2 kids will show up, then you'll feel down and all that. Don't worry about it. For sure we've seen that, right? Sometimes it's like 4 kids, including me, him, and another brother, like,
it's like give me Samir Noman.
Yeah.
Like
and we're
4
there.
adults.
Yeah. And then he's like, what's up, guys? So she tells me, like, Allah loves the fact that, you strive for that perfection, because you know that it's there, but you don't know what it is, right? So when she told me that, I was like, okay, I got a little more boost, it's
so
good.
Beautiful.
Alhamdulillah.
That's so true. And it really connects with the hadith from before, right? Like, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the small deeds,
Mhm.
no matter how small, as long as
Mhm.
they're done consistently, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, subhanAllah, it's so true. Like, just start with one prayer and work your way from there if you can. If you can do all five, great. Pray your sunnahs, like,
Mhm.
but it's a habit and it's a marathon, really.
Mhm.
So it's not meant to also be a sprint.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Because you could burn yourself out, right? And then the reality is that's it. Like
100%.
you become so shy and almost kind of like, and that's a trap from shaitan, of course,
I think that should be like the log line of this video. It's a marathon, not a sprint. 100%. I'm not even, that's crazy. Because when you get into it, and then you want to like, I got to pray everything, and it's like, and then you burn yourself out and you're like, man, I can't pray anything. It's like, bro, can you chill for a second?
Yeah,
Can you,
exactly.
like, you pray all your prayers, try to pray at the mosque when you can, build a habit, like we were saying. It could take 7 years. You're saying you can never be perfect. You guys are saying like the best things, and I think people listening to it are gonna be like, I gotta go pray Fajr tomorrow morning at the mosque, and it's like, yeah, you should, but if you don't hate yourself for it.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
It's a marathon.
And I don't want to get like
forever.
controversial, but like, some opinions out there from the mashayikh, of course, have to do with prayer. They'll say like, if you've missed a prayer, you have to make it back. And it's the only way that, you can kind of get forgiven in that way. Like it's basically like the only way that you can do it. But there are other opinions as well that say like, if you've left off like prayer for a while, just make your shahada back, make your sincere tawbah and just start there. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of forgiving and he's capable of overlooking, and you can just start from scratch and not kind of get overwhelmed and fall into that despair. Like, I missed like 777 prayers in my life.
And that happens quick, by the way.
Yeah.
700 prayers. That goes, that's not even 1 year of not praying.
Yeah. It's messed up, right? When you think about it, but yeah.
One
year,
1,500 prayers roughly.
Yeah. One year is like, 1,500 prayers.
Yeah.
1,500 prayers.
Yeah. So it adds up quick.
1,800 prayers.
Yeah, probably more, right?
It's 1,800 prayers.
Yeah.
It's quick, bro.
Math, man. I haven't done that forever, but yeah.
Damn, bro.
1,825 and 1 1/4.
That's why, like, I really appreciate the mashayikh who have these kinds of opinions, because the reality is, when you're living in the West, when you're living as a youth in that kind of particular situation, it's the reality for a lot of us. And that's just, how it is. Unfortunately, a lot of us maybe didn't even grow up in like practicing families at all as well, or people who establish prayers themselves. And so when you're growing up and you're missing all of this, and then you look back, you're like, man, am I really going to have to make up like, 2,000 prayers now, 3,000 prayers, wherever I'm at?
And look, if you want to do it, I know some uncles who told me that they were doing it like presently. Like I met an uncle, mashallah, who was telling me like, he's like, yo, last week or something, or last month or recently, I just finished making up my prayers. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, for 17 years of my life, I didn't pray. So for 17 years of my life, every time I'd pray dhuhr, I'd pray another dhuhr.
Yeah.
I'd pray asr, I'd pray another asr, like making one up,
Yeah.
And you could do that.
Yeah.
But the idea is that that's not necessarily mandatory upon you. And if you feel like that's a burden on you, then like Nour is saying, like Allah doesn't test you more than you can handle. He doesn't burden you more than you can bear.
That's it. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%. I think that 100% echoes exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Well, mashallah, guys. Jazakallah khair for your
to you, bro.
for your knowledge. Mashallah, like I've learned a lot. I don't know.
I'm surprised. I'm not sure what.
No.
Mashallah.
Mashallah, like
You
with the
learned,
hadith and all that.
Mashallah.
Again, if you guys want to like do closing remarks, if you guys want to say anything before we close it down.
I would just reiterate the point of the people you're with, the environments you surround yourself in. Like if you're the kind of person who wants to take your salah more seriously, then you surround yourself with people who want to take their salah more seriously, right? If you're with people who don't care about prayer, the reality is you're probably not going to care about prayer. My wife and I, we try to make it a point when we're at home. We encourage each other to pray our sunnahs. We encourage each other to, establish those good habits, that Quran habit, that, the fasting habits, that we encourage each other, right? So whoever you're living with, whoever you're spending time with, try to encourage each other, inshallah. And you learn from each other and you grow off of each other. That's my closing remark.
Yeah. I think just kind of touching on that as well, is if you get into the habit of being someone who does pray regularly, let's say at the masjid, be that person who's a source of goodness when it comes to that, like not a turnoff, but someone who actually promotes it and in a positive way as well. So be that person. Don't be that, downer brother or uncle or sister or anything like that. Be someone who encourages people in a positive way to come to the masjid. And inshallah, you're going to get not only your reward for praying there, but also hopefully their reward as well for being that, environment and being that push to have a person kind of establish their place in the masjid. Yeah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. We learned a lot from you, bro. Just having this conversation is a blessing, mashallah.
Yeah, it's for me, like I was trying to get you for a long time, and mashallah, like I think it was like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, literally.
Like I met him, and I'm like,
I got out of my cave.
Yeah. Like I saw him, like I have to get him on the podcast. I brought him like, yo, give me 2 minutes. You'll come in real quick.
2 minutes to an hour podcast. Mashallah.
That's good. Alhamdulillah. Again, just trying to remind you guys that every Friday we have the halaqah at 7:30. And we have Brother Khadr or anyone giving this week. No, sorry, can't do this week.
What do you mean?
Because I don't know when we're dropping this episode. Yeah,
okay,
true.
cool.
So inshallah, every Friday we have halaqas, and halaqah given by Brother Khadr or anyone, or Brother Nour, or inshallah, like if they're busy, I'll give the halaqas, or Brother Noman. Shout out to Brother Noman. And I'm stressing. I'm sorry,
This is the worst promo ever.
Hey, guys,
Guys, the halaqah is much better than this, I promise you.
Yo,
Yusuf comes, he's ready when he gives a halaqah, mashallah. He's on the ball. He's not looking for no man's name.
Yeah, so we got basketball, we got food, we got Khadr, we got Yusuf playing ball, we have all that. We got mashallah, everything. So inshallah, see you guys soon on what's it called again? Voices of the Ummah Talk.
You for real?
Yeah, it was on purpose.
On purpose?
Yeah.
Well, they changed it.